What's going on, everyone? My name is Tenebris Infinite, and welcome back to my Let's Play. So, if the last episode was a mega episode, prepare yourselves for an ultra episode here. We're going to be going through all of Himfell, and also, we're going to be doing our best to keep it deathless, which is going to be intense. It's going to be really, really difficult, but I think I'm up for the challenge here. So really quickly, in between episodes here, I managed to get my hands on the Automat 4, and so that's one more weapon that I needed along the way. We still need the KVM 89, the Augstudsere, and the 12 gauge pump, all in 5 crown, but we'll be able to get them along the way. Now, next up, we're going to be spending a couple skill points that I've also managed to grind up in the meantime. The second level of our armor perk, and then the mechanic. And then we're going to be pushing on to build this guy into an engineer. So we're going to start off with a nice leisurely bike ride here before we start getting off into Himfell. Now we're making our way off to the little radio broadcast station here set up to get in contact with Anita.
Jag heter Anita Sjögren. Du som hör det här ska veta att du inte är ensam. Vi är några stycken som har lyckats fly från Östertörn till ön Himfjäll. Det kryllar av rosthögar här också, men vi har hittat ett ställe där vi ligger lågt och är trygga. Och några av oss försöker laga en båt vid Lennart Marin så att fler kan komma hit. Ju fler desto starkare. Och just det, ta med er pjäxor.
When making my way into Leonard's Marin, I actually wound up running into a bunch of Apocalypse hunters over here, and I'm not sure if this is a recent change, but it's definitely a warm welcome into Himfell itself. But so going back to Anita, Anita is the girl that we follow during the Sanctuary mission all the way up to the road to Saltham. And through the Road to Saltham mission. So it's really cool seeing her come about and play a major role now later on in the story during the whole Himfell DLC. Definitely for me and most players, you would just be following Anita and assume that she died, like most of the other NPCs in the game. But it's really cool to see her come around here and wind up being something really, really important to the story moving forwards. Again, as always, I'm going to try to tie in the lore as much as I can into this Let's Play, just to kind of tie things together and make sense of a lot of the madness that goes on in Generation Zero.
Nisse, Björn, snälla svara. Kom. Snälla svara om ni hör det här. Kom.
Making our way into the Marine Big, we hear Anita's voice over a walkie-talkie.
Vilken lättnad. Ni i alla fall... Vem är det? Hej. Skönt att höra någon annans röst kan jag tänka mig. Jag heter Anita och jag tycker att vi ska hjälpa varandra. Men då måste du komma över till Himfjäll.
Now we just gotta find a wheel in here in order to fix up the boat and we can be on our way.
Hallå där! Såg du Björn? Eller Charlotte? Nisse? Vad är det som har hänt?
Benny, det är väl uppenbart vad som har hänt. Helvete. Okej, du måste fixa båten själv.
One thing that's going to be a constant throughout our Himfall episode here is that we're going to have to do all the heavy lifting for the Resistance team.
Fick du igång den? Bra. Det var Nisses idé så att fler kan ta sig över Himfjällsundet. Hur som helst, det här är vår nuvarande position.
Nej Anita. Det kan vara plundrare eller till och med något ännu värre. Som den där plutonen. Hjälp oss först så kanske vi avslöjar vad vi är.
Benny isn't entirely wrong here because part of the reason why we're coming to Himfell so early is because it's such an excellent place for loot. There's all these downed resistance fighters and all of these dead soldiers and police members, and they're just excellent sources of loot, especially for 50 cal ammo. So now as we cross the little river here, we're taking out these machines pretty early on. The first time I came to Himfell, way back when Alpine Unrest launched first, that runner over on this dock here managed to wreck house on me, so I made sure that I took him out early on this time just to be extra safe. I thought I was being smart by blowing up the whole dock on the other side early on as well, but it seems like the machine spawned a little bit later.
Du kommer
This
nog inte
runner
klara
just
det hela
yeeted
vägen
himself
dit i
into
alla
the river
fall.
though, so
Här på himfjället
rest
är
in
vi
pieces, man.
välsignade med en mycket speciell sorts rosthög. De är självlysande och skjuter kemikalier omkring sig. Ja, ni kommer att märka att de är väldigt festliga.
Roland sa tidigare att de hade blivit upptäckta av hundar i närheten av byn. De är säkert här omkring, så var försiktig. De här är ännu farligare än de på Östertarn.
So continuing with my incredibly lucky machine spawns so far, there was a hunter party that actually was roaming this area just as I was getting off the boat. So after taking them down, we'll make our way into the little townlet and search for Roland. Now making our way into Mark's turn here, I figured it would be good to have just a little bit of sniping target practice against the reliable doggos that spawn in here. It turns out that there's a hitbox in between the cords though, so I had to kind of climb my way up onto the little edge of the banister there in order to efficiently snipe out these doggos. But after that, it was pretty easy. After killing the one doggo, the other one foolishly came by to check out what had gone on. That was a mistake. And now for the last doggo, he was just kind of wandering around the middle of the area, so I used one of the cars there to just blow him up real quick and easy.
Va? Hittar du Roland också? Helt otroligt att alla är... Nu behöver vi verkligen all hjälp vi kan få. Om du hjälper oss så säger vi vad vi är. Låter det bra?
Vi har flera sjuka och skadade här. Roland letar efter mediciner, smärtstillande, sårtvätt, bandage, sömntabletter och sånt. Medicinskåpet på kaféet var länsat. Det kunde man ju räkna med. Prova i Himmarvet. Det är Himfjälls metropol om man säger så.
Off we are to Himmarvet now in order to finish up Roland's job. It's kind of too bad that Roland was taken out in the process, but I guess that's kind of the common story for a lot of these resistance fighters. None of them were fully trained, even though there was that civil defense program. And overcoming the machine apocalypse was actually a hell of a feat for any of the surviving members we found.
Ja, vet du vad jag skulle kunna dö för just nu? En apelsinläsk eller två, om det finns.
Läsk. Du fokuserar verkligen på rätt saker, Benny. Men jag skulle inte heller tacka nej.
Now, the first time you come into Himmervet, it's always a hell of a fight because you've got all of these apocalypse hunters and apocalypse runners that you aren't going to be fully used to normally. But one thing that I can say that is so great about PC gaming here is that there's virtually no big city lag at all. And on console, that was one of the hardest things, was not only just fighting the machines, but fighting them through incredibly dropped frames, because Generation Zero is a very visually impressive game, and it definitely pushes consoles at least to their absolute limit. So finally having some smooth fights here in big cities has been absolutely riveting for me, because I really love urban combat in this game. I find the urban environments are filled with like so many different objects that you can utilize for cover, and so many interesting alleyways you can kind of deke and juke through. This was kind of a crazy little situation that happened here, though. I was starting to get pinned down, so I decided to kind of stand back and try to get some pot shots off against the machines around the corner here. But a hunter managed to come around and land right on top of me, and I was super lucky because he managed to collide with the building instead of me with this melee attack. So I just had to chew as many medkits as I could to kind of heal buffer my way through that little encounter there. One thing that is eternally frustrating about fighting Apocalypse Hunters is the fact that they knock you down whether or not you have the steady heat perk. And so I don't know if in the future maybe they could change that so that steady feet will keep you standing no matter what. But it could be pretty irritating having them knock you down in the middle of combat, even though you have a skill in an attempt to avoid having that even happen. Anyway, with the chaos out of the way, now we're going to make our way into this little shop here to pick up the resources that Benny and Anita needed.
Hittade du? Grymt! Den här läsken innehåller världens bästa låtsas-apelsinjuice. Garanterat utan riktig frukt.
Benny's got his priorities straight, though. What do you need in the middle of an apocalypse? Friggin' orange soda.
Benny, där ser du att man ska lita på andra människor. Vi är på hotell Björntunet, så kom hit. Ligg så lågt det bara går.
Easier said than done, though, because immediately afterwards you have a bunch of hunters that just run right up to the building here. So as I fight it out with these hunters, these Apoco hunters, I figured it would be good to kind of chat about a little idea I had as I was completing this little mission here. I think it would be really cool to get an emote kind of in honor of Benny and his love for orange soda. It would be really cool to get an orange soda emote. And it could kind of be like the first person emotes that you get where you do like the thumbs up and the wave to other player characters and stuff. And maybe your character could like crack open a can of orange soda and then swig it back. I think that would be really, really cool. It would be a fun nod to Benny, and also the assets for the orange soda are already in the game. All they would have to do is kind of get it coded properly to be in your hand. But the other thing too is that we've got these new musical emotes that use kind of ulterior props as we're doing an emote. So I think that it would be really fun to see an orange soda emote. Let me know what you think about an orange soda emote down in the comments below. Now, with the machines taken care of, we made our way over to the entrance to Beertnet. Well, while I was making my way here, though, there was some serious opposition in the way. I wound up running into a Harvester over here with his friendly little pack of hunters. So I took down the Sniper Hunter pretty quickly there, and then just kind of finished off the rest of the hunters, utilizing my environment as cover. That's one of the biggest things that I really learned from the difficulty spike is how to utilize the environment. I do think at some point I'm going to make a video on kind of tips and tricks for guerrilla warfare here in Generation Zero and how to utilize things like these little hills and stuff like that as ultimate sources of cover. Because as you can see here, I'm even taking on 2 Apocalypse tanks and having 0 issues along the way because of the little hill cover that I have. And then also utilizing this downed harvester. This is an old tip of mine, but utilizing downed machines sometimes can be an excellent source of cover because depending on how they fall, they can provide like a little barricade that will shield you from a lot of incoming fire. So now all I had to do was just finish off the rest of these 2 tanks, which again was a really, really easy fight. It's a bit of a shame that I didn't get any good loot for it, but still, at least it was some decent experience along the way.
Ja, just det. Jag antar att det är uppenbart att vi inte är helt säkra här. Vi är på ett lyxhotell, men ligger och kurar på golvet i en vinkällare. Så ironiskt.
Now, as we make our way into Beertonet here, I was totally over-encumbered by having too much ammo and too many crafting resources on my character, so I really needed to make a pit stop here. Luckily enough, taking down the runners inside of here is pretty pretty okay in terms of close quarters combat because it's such a small environment that you can kind of just utilize the environment for most of your cover as opposed to trying to actually evade anything. This door was doing something kind of funky though. It seemed like the door wasn't feeling too good from the poison shots from the runner there. Anyway, with most of the runners down, there was just one runner left, and then we could finally drop off our supplies and meet up with Anita and Benny downstairs. So this here's Anita, an OG gamer girl from the 80s, and she's got a real passion for history and refurbishment of historical items. She's kind of like the gel that binds the resistance together in its early state here. And here's Benny, a washed-up rock star from the band Barbaros. He was the guitarist in the band and the singer. He's got a love for orange juice and a heart of gold, and the dude's probably what I would consider to be the comedic relief of the resistance.
Starkt jobbat. Tack så mycket för medicinen. Välkommen hit. Det är jag som är Anita och som du ser lever vi inget lyxliv direkt.
Tja, Benny. Ja, du kanske känner igen mig. Jo, jag var ju...
Vi pratar om Barbaros' glansdagar en annan gång, rockstjärnan.
Now, with our next objective in mind, we have to go off and stop a couple runners that are causing a hard time outside of the rear net here. Utilizing the bear statue, I decided to kind of try to bait the hunter around it so that way I could stay away from his flamethrower as much as possible. Sadly, it was to no avail. I still wound up getting burninated. But either way, taking down this hunter was rather easy for the most part. I stacked my character with a lot of fire resistance clothing items just to make sure I'd be safe throughout this.
Verkligen imponerande hur du rider bland rosthögarna. Men nu vet du nog vad vi är.
Du, vi måste fixa det här. Kanske du locka iväg dem med en massa oljud. Jag vet. Sätt igång brandlarmet vid Tärnboda skans.
Gathering together a whole bunch of paper materials into this little trash can here, we lit it on fire to set off the fire alarm. But it's gonna turn out that it's not enough noise to draw the machines in.
Men några rosthögar är fortfarande här så det hjälpte inte. Det behövs mer oljud.
Prova med flyglarmet. Du vet, Hesa Fredrik. Det sitter högst uppe på Övertärnafyren.
So with that, off to the lighthouse we go to set off the Hesa Friedrich. And once we reach the top, we get to see some awesome fireworks. The explosion effects in Generation Zero are immaculate.
Var det där från dig? Vi bad om lite oljud och det fixade du. Det var nära ögat. Vi kan inte fortsätta så här. Ihopkurade här inne.
Now we're coming off to one of my favorite missions here in Alpine Unrest.
Vi vet att det finns vapen och ammunition inlåst på polisstationen i Himmarvet. Om du lyckas ta med dem hit så får du också några.
Inga nycklar i bilen. Fan. Okej, du har adressen. Så leta hemma hos honom.
In all honesty, this is something that I would probably do if I was ever stuck in a machine apocalypse or a zombie apocalypse or anything like that. I would definitely be trying to go off to a police station of some sort in order to arm myself with some small arms and munitions just if this was ever a real-world scenario kind of deal. I really think that a police station would be one of the safest bets you could go to for getting some moderately easy access to weapons in case of an apocalyptic scenario. Now, as we go through the police station, we're faced by a whole bunch of ticks having flashbacks to the Hermelinen bunker raid that we did in the last episode. But clearing out these ticks is really, really easy. I decided that I'd be using the experimental clock as my sidearm throughout Himfall here. Mostly just in case if I ever needed to EMP an enemy, but it's also really reliable for taking down ticks because you can shoot off their armor plate super quickly and then just get a direct hit on them, which usually is enough to take them down in one fell swoop. Now, we're utilizing one of the early tips that I gave you dudes back in episode 1, where you can kind of peek out ticks from around corners before they actually notice you. That time, I stepped out into the open just a little bit too much, but it's a really great way of dealing with ticks when you're stuck in these close quarter situations with them. Now, we've got an exploding tick in a jail cell here, and I'm not too sure how that tick made it in there. But it seems like the ticks are a little bit more capable than they might seem. Now, with all the ticks cleared out and taken care of, we could just go around and mark out all of the weapons boxes for the team.
Rock on! Vi går några tillsammans och hämtar dem. Okej? Jag, Åsa och kanske Barbro? Det är ett rent mirakel om vi tar oss tillbaka allihop.
It's kind of funny that Benny says rock on in English when you have the Swedish dialogue there. You would definitely think that he would say that in Swedish itself, but still kind of cool. Upon receiving a distress call from a Vraken fighter pilot, we come outside to see a crash.
Det här är Fråken Kara 1123 från F23 Överby. Det här är korpral Elsa Korsanding, svenska arméns kanske sista pilot. Kan någon höra mig på den här frekvensen? Är det någon som hör det här? Kom. Helvete! Fråken Kara 1123. Fråken Kara 1123. Träffad. Störtar någonstans på Himfjäll. Katapult. Är det funktion? Är det funktion?
Vad var det? Va? Ett vråkenplan? Ha! Svenska armén kanske inte är helt utplånad ännu.
Ingen överlever väl en sån där krasch?
Men om hon lever så är hon svårt skadad. Ju fler desto starkare, Anita, eller hur? Och lite extra hjälp vore faktiskt bra. Så att ingen mat går till spillo.
Definitely having a Vraken fighter pilot would be useful to the Resistance, but before that, we're going to buy a couple perks here. So I actually didn't have the steady feet at the point where I thought I did. So maybe now we'll stand a better chance at not getting knocked down by the Apoco hunters. Even though, with them saying that having a Vraken fighter pilot would be useful, they don't realize that they have the young Swedish Terminator himself here on their team. Now, I gotta say, the advice that you dudes gave to me back in episode 1 has come through so greatly. I'm able to take on machines in my absolute prime here on PC, and I actually feel myself getting even, quicker and better to react to things. Maybe that's just from the mouse and keyboard input itself. I never really thought anything of it. I always thought that that was just PC elitism. But it seems like there's a little bit of merit to it. I definitely find myself being able to turn and react to things a lot faster on PC. Now, surveying the wreckage of the Vraken fighter jet, it seems like along the way, Elsa's eject managed to malfunction, but somehow she managed to survive the jet crash.
Överlevde hon verkligen kraschen? Försök att hitta henne. Hon måste få reda på var vi är. Det här är korpral Elsa Korsandi. Före detta Vråken-pilot. Hör någon det här? Kom, jag heter Anita. Hur är det med dig? Vi kan hjälpa dig. Vi har lite mediciner och vi är på ett säkert ställe på... Jaha, då är det du som sprider ut walkie-talkies och hotellbroschyrer överallt. Varför det liksom? Ta gärna fram en varm filt till mig. Vi ses där.
Making our way back to Björtenet now, we get our first introduction properly to Elsa here. Elsa was a fighter pilot that was part of the team that you learn about in one of the bunker broadcasts that we listened to in the last episode. She's a tough chick, and I feel like she's going to be a major player in the upcoming Resistance.
Aha, så du är gruppens laxkämpe. Ledsen att jag stack. Tänkte att en välkomstkommitté räckte. Särskilt eftersom ammunitionen tog slut.
Helt fantastiskt att ni klarade er. På sistone har vår grupp blivit allt mindre. Men nu kanske turen har vänt.
Vi har ett mer brådskande problem. En hund i kylrummet. Det låter som en metafor, men det är det inte. Den följde efter Elsa och vi lyckades till slut fånga in den där.
I guess with us being the only one having supplies here, it falls on us to take down that doggo with her trusty shotgun here. Problem solved.
Vad är det som händer? Det är inte sant.
Men det kan väl vara bra? Det gör det ju svårare för rosthögen att upptäcka hotellet och hitta oss.
Du har rätt. Men vi kommer även att frysa i det här vädret. Värmesystemet på hotellet är eldrivet.
But you know what they say, the best things in life come in pairs, so now we have to repair the generator.
Va? Strömavbrottet verkar ha slagit ut låsen till alla rum. Tänk att få sova i en riktig säng.
Luckily for us, it turns out the janitor was a gambling man, so we come upstairs to find his key bedded on a table.
Jo, en grej bara. Det här är ingen olyckshändelse. De spårar upp oss, väntar ut oss och skrämmer oss till dumma beslut. Jag har sett hur Fenix funkar. Fenix? Är det så fienden heter? Ni har nog förstått vid det här laget att det inte är Sovjet, hotet från öst, som ligger bakom det här.
Elsa showing here that the army definitely knew more of what was going on than what they let on. Maybe it was only select divisions of the army, but she definitely was aware of Phoenix being the machine onslaught and not it being some sort of ulterior thing.
Det funkade! Tog du hand om alla spindlarna i rummen också? Jag längtar efter att flytta upp igen.
Inte läge att checka in på spat ännu. Det här är verkligen bara början. Och ni håller till precis vid helvetets portar. Du får nog ta över från mig. Jag skulle helst ta hand om den där maskinen själv. Men...
Now we're coming up to the third act of this entire Alpine Unrest section, and personally one of my favorite missions in all of Alpine Unrest.
Så här är det. Inte långt härifrån finns en militärforskningsanläggning, kodnamn Bergfinken, med högre grad av hemligstämpling än de på Östertörn. Det var målet för min attack.
Now for the dramatic pause.
Rätt skum verksamhet pågick där. Veronica fick reda på att det verkar som att FOA plötsligt avvecklade det hela på 70-talet. Antar att de styrande insåg hur illa det skulle se ut om det blev känt att Sverige utvecklade massförstörelsevapen.
Massförstörelsevapen? Verkligen en säker tillflyktsort du envisades med att vi... Anita? Vad är det?
Nej, det är bara... Allt som... Det är nästan som att de vet. Alltså jag behöver bara en stund och...
ingen fara, Anita.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm really nervous for Anita moving forwards, but we'll talk about that at the end of the episode here.
Haft en aning om någonting. Vi har bara gömt oss, överlevt och ätit ur konservburkar. Vem i helvete försöker utplåna oss som om vi vore råttor?
Vad? Inte vem. Vi vet inte exakt vad som hände. Och i början handlade det inte om utplåning. Vi tror att de flesta blev bortförda först. Och de som fortfarande stod på benen efteråt.
Now, this is a really interesting direction that the story is starting to take. What is Phoenix doing with those abducted people? I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, but for now, we have an Apoco tank to take care of down here at the Hellmouth. Should be really easy because this is such an optimal sniping position. And luckily enough, because I have all of that fire resistance going on, most of the fire chip damage is not going to be doing too much to me. Alongside that, I've also got the extra armor protection from the perks that I've chosen. So I'm in pretty good shape for taking down Apoco tanks. Now we just need this keycard off this dead soldier here and we can make our way in.
Alltså, hela den här Phoenix-grejen är svår att tro på. Hur kom din Veronica på den här smörjan?
Min Veronica Nilsson, dataingenjör, det vill säga supernörd. Hon jobbade på FOA 53, forskningslabbet där olyckan hände.
Now, this is kind of an interesting little part of dialogue. I really wonder how Veronica and Elsa kind of correlate in the story moving forwards. There's clearly more to them than meets the eye. But in regards to Veronica herself, I feel like she's going to be another major player, similar to the way Anita is a major player, somewhere along the line. Whether or not she'll be leading her own resistance faction, or she'll be doing her own kind of subterfuge on the side, as Elsa says, she's a major nerd, so she's not really cut out for combat of any sort. But definitely her expertise into the Phoenix program itself will be a huge benefit to the resistance moving forwards if she does manage to join up with them. Now, with this experimental loadout, I tried to make it a little bit balanced between interior combat with the shotgun and the K-Pist, and then outdoor combat with the experimental AG and the PVG. And I really think that it is a working, awesome loadout for the experimental weapons themselves. I can't wait to see new experimental weapons get added to the game, though, because I just feel like we'll be able to make really interesting loadouts based on the ulterior effects that the experimental weapons themselves will give. Anyway, now with us making our way into the Hellmouth itself here, we're going to start finding out some really, really interesting things along the way. Down in the living quarters here, all we run into are a bunch of ticks. And this really spooky door that just closes on its own. The team were having a bit of fun with that. But again, I think that this is a really excellent opportunity for the machine type that I had been talking about in the last episode, where the machine type would be built entirely for interior combat, close quarters kind of combat. I think that locations like this would be excellent to see an enemy of that sort.
Det enda vi har gjort de senaste 3 veckorna är att söka svar. Vi var också en fin liten grupp som ni ett tag. Vi kallade oss för motståndet. Ganska snabbt var det bara Veronica och jag kvar. Och sen...
Och då bestämde du dig för att hoppa in i ett vråkenplan och göra slut på dem helt ensam. Jag trodde att jag hade mest dödslängtan här. Eller hur, Anita? Anita, kom igen nu.
I actually didn't even catch on that until I was making post commentary here. But it sounds like Veronica was actually a part of the kind of original resistance, which is really, really cool. And she's definitely going to be a major player later on. But here we have the Reaper tank. You guys know that I've talked about this guy in the past. He still is one of the most badass looking machine variants that we've seen so far, and I cannot wait to fight this guy at some point in the future. Now, after that little teaser introduction to the Reaper there, let's make our way further into the Hellmouth. Now, this place is a pretty tricky spot to fight machines in because there's a lot of canisters and explosives just kind of laying around in the area. So you've got to be really careful when you're fighting the machines to not be exploding gas tanks because you could potentially wind up killing yourself in the process. So when I went through here, I was primarily aiming for body shots, except for in situations where I could potentially draw the machines a little bit further out and away from anything explodey or dangerous. Now you guys can see the gas canisters that I was talking about just up here, and though it might not seem like a lot, the explosion radius from these canisters will actually reach really far into this little bunker. So definitely, just pro tip for all you dudes, if any of you guys come back to Alpine Unrest and start completing it again from scratch, to be pretty careful about it. So down that hallway there's actually really nothing down that way except for a whole bunch of radioactive barrels. So there's not too much that we can garner from there. But down in here, there's actually some really, really interesting stuff that we're going to be finding. Just being safe and stealthy by blowing that up there. Now here we go for the juicy bit. Now this again is just going to be one of Tenebris's theories, but I have an idea about this warboard here. So this is clearly a Phoenix warboard of some sort. You've even got this giant eye kind of detective camera up on top of it, and I really wonder if at some point in the future we'll come across these Phoenix warboards and we'll get missions from them, but they'll kind of be like inverse missions, in which case it will be like an objective that Phoenix had, but instead will be kind of counteracting the mission that Phoenix had in order to aid the resistance.
Vad är det som händer där borta? Hallå? Gjorde du något? Radiosignalen är helt förvrängd nu. Jag kan knappt höra dig. Kom, det är Phoenix. Det måste det vara. De är oss på spåren. De vet att vi är här. Och de har vetat det ett tag.
Fan har tagit oss härifrån. Till Östertörn.
If only Benny could know that it's no safer off on Östertörn than it is off on Himtha.
Nej, vi stannar här. Vi skulle inte vara säkra någon annanstans. Vi måste försvara det här stället.
Now we're coming up to the mission that I've been concerned about doing this entire time.
Jag är ledsen att jag tappade greppet en stund. Det var bara... Ja, nu tar vi en sak i taget. Vi börjar med att göra det här stället säkrare.
Barrikadera alla fönster, förstärk dörrarna. De håller inte för alltid, men hotellet är enklare att försvara med färre passager att täcka.
Vad behöver vi? Plankor och skit. Funkar det med skidor? Det behöver vi i alla fall inte ransonera här.
Time to fix up the Bjertanet with a good old montage.
I tragiska situationer som typ när ens mamma har dött kan man komma att tänka på konstiga saker. Ni vet, massa märkliga grejer dyker upp. Jag tänker på dagen då jag tog examen på pilotutbildningen. Jag var inte den första kvinnan att bli pilot, men jag var den andra. Mina föräldrar och min bror var så stolta. Och jag bara tänkte, coolt. Vad ska jag göra för tatuering nu då?
Världsturnén 72. London. Vårt bästa gig någonsin. Publiken sjöng mer än jag själv gjorde. Min bror Lasse och jag, vi bråkade inte så mycket på den tiden.
Vet ni vad jag saknar allra mest? Att köra bil. Bara köra runt i min gamla röda Ville 445 och... Ja, och ta hand om mamma och pappa. Vi är så redo vi kan vara. Och när de kommer måste resten av oss stanna här och vakta dörren till vinkällaren.
Here we go, the mission a lot of you have been waiting
Jag
for.
skulle kunna säga tack så mycket och så vidare, men det vore för tidigt. Så om jag säger så här. Jag har vant mig
Men vid tanken på att bo på ett lyxhotell.
Det är ett trevligt ställe, helt klart. Pappa hatade att jag roade mig här istället för att hälsa på honom.
Now, the last time I did the resistance mission, I flexed a whole bunch of really creative traps and stuff. This time around, I decided I'd just farm up a whole bunch of landmines and use my kind of minefield approach to setting up some traps here. If any of you guys haven't seen my video on how to make a minefield, I'm going to have that linked down below because it is an incredibly useful thing to do, especially in situations like this. Now, with a bunch of mines placed all around here, I was feeling pretty good about it, but I figured I'd put just a couple more mines in some extra areas. I couldn't quite remember where all of the machines spawned from, because quite a few machines spawned throughout the Resistance mission. But I think that I was able to catch most of the areas, and I only missed like a couple choke points around this little parking lot.
Hörni, nu kommer de. Stäng dörren. Var beredda. Det händer nu.
So in the resistance mission, the machine spawns kind of start to ramp up through each wave. So you start off with just a few doggos, but then eventually it starts getting to hunters and even a tank by the end of it. I wish that I had caught that side entrance there. That would have been a great spot to put down a couple mines, but either way, if I ever come back to a mission like this in the future, I'll be able to do it a little bit more optimally. You can see back there in the distance, one of the hunters ran into a couple of mines and wound up nuking himself. And this hunter just managed to avoid all the mines that I placed down. Lucky guy. But either way, the mines were doing the trick so far. Now, the hunters that spawn in next are far more deadly to the player than they are to the map itself. So I decided I'd kind of draw their aggro just a little bit, just so that that way I could kind of keep them distracted, focused on me, and take them out before they start launching off their 50 cal rounds. With my mines doing most of the work for me, though, I was able to get through that wave using very minimal amounts of ammo. Now, luckily enough, though, I remember this part of the Resistance mission really catching me out because they start attacking the building from the side. So I took the time to preemptively run on over here, place down a whole bunch of mines, and get this side of the building all set up for the next coming wave. Now, the machines probably won't be making it back this far, so I figured now was as good a time as ever to get myself posted up kind of on the patio area here to use it as a decent amount of cover as the machines nuke themselves along the way off of my mines. So sadly, I missed a great opportunity to set a landmine beside that car there. I tried setting it off with my 50 cal, but I was just a little bit too late. Either way, with more waves coming, I just needed to kind of steel myself, put myself together, and continue wrecking machines. I figured just using close quarters spray and pray would be a little bit more effective than trying to be super accurate at this point in time, because I've got more than enough ammo in my K-Pist to whiff a good couple hundred shots. Now I figured it would also be a good time to reset a couple landmines just around this area, just to kind of soften up the machines along the way before I finish them off with the K-Pist. Ticks actually don't do any damage to the hotel at all, and even though they can kind of chip away at the character themselves, it's better to just kind of ignore them and move on to setting up more traps around the area. If any of you guys want to be more elaborate with traps, I highly advise it. Especially for the tank wave, if you set up a decently placed EMP trap, you could take down that tank super quickly and super easy. But for now, since there was still a fair decent amount of landmines left in the area, I figured I'd just replace a whole bunch of landmines, wrap up the landmine count that I had, and then kind of get myself back into a defensive position to finish up this final lap here. Now, I had a bit of a crazy idea here that I wanted to try out. I wanted to see how useful the firework box would actually be at drawing the machine aggro, because the machine aggro is already kind of split up between you and the hotel itself. So I thought, hey, why not separate it a third way and plant one of these firework boxes along the way? And it actually turns out that it was pretty effective. Now for the final wave, the wave with the big boy. So the tank starts rolling in for this trap. But luckily enough, I had all these landmines already in place, and they did a ton of work for softening them up along the way. You guys will see at the end of this fight that taking him down in the finale was so much easier than it would have been if I hadn't have placed all of those landmines. Now he did that crazy 180-degree turn shot with his auto cannons there, which chewed me up pretty badly, but I kind of got myself into a good spot here. Again, just utilizing the environment for my own cover, and utilized this little stand building to shield myself from most of his machine gun fire. Now, a pro tip for dealing with apocalypse tanks, especially in this difficult time of Generation Zero, always take off their auto cannon. That's going to be the thing to do the most damage to you. The mines will definitely do damage to you too if they catch you out, but for the most part, it's the auto cannon that's going to be really hurting you in the process. And there you go, there's the resistance.
Statusrapport kom. Allt okej där uppe? Jag tror att det var den sista. För tillfället.
Wow, otroligt! Alltså jag fattar inte att jag säger det här, men jag är glad att vi klarade oss.
And I was so close to doing the whole mission without any damage to the Biertonet at all. But sadly enough, some of those shockwaves from the tank actually wound up reaching the hotel because those shockwaves have an insane distance on them. But now I'm able to reap the rewards and just grab all the resources I can from all of these machines out here and then tee up with the team down in the basement.
Men det är bara en tidsfråga innan de kommer tillbaka. Vet du, du skulle ha varit till stor hjälp i armén.
Vi måste hitta fler överlevare. Det måste finnas fler där ute. Vi kanske har en chans trots allt. Vad hette er grupp, Elsa? Motståndet. Jag gillar det.
So there you guys go, all of Alpine Unrest, and we did it deathless, which I think is pretty awesome. So just a quick final note here on Anita. I am concerned for Anita in the future of Generation Zero. She definitely has got something going on with her kind of blacking out and getting like really disoriented at certain points in the story. So I myself am bracing for whenever Anita meets her sad demise, because I think that that's definitely going to be something to happen in the future. But either way, here we go, completing all of Alpine Unrest in one episode. This was a mammoth effort. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video, and if you're still watching at this point, post a my dude comment down in the comment section below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.